Pescara for their special support they gave in holding this three-day G7 meeting on development. I also wish to thank all the law enforcement officers and all the people who attended, including representatives of my ministry and all the Balitakiji officials. I think these were three very positive days, as well as the Air Force, which I'd like to thank for the concert yesterday. And I think these days have brought a spotlight on Italy and its role as holding the presidency of the G7. These few days were characterized in particular by an event, given the extraordinary situation. We had representatives of Lebanon, Palestinian Authority and Israel to speak on how the distressed population could be helped, meant that Italy played a very important role in heading political initiative to try and alleviate the suffering of the civilian population, also to build peace by means of a ceasefire in Lebanon and also in Gaza. This is our main goal. We turned a spotlight on this situation. We also obtained a very important result, which was the confirmation of the possibility of the Food for Gaza trucks to enter that area with special treatment on the part of Israel, which will make it possible for them to distribute directly to the civil population medical and food supplies. Already delivered 47 tons of foodstuffs 10 days ago. Tomorrow I'll be in Genoa to greet a new departure. We've purchased 15 articulated trucks, which we have donated to the World Food Programme. These trucks will leave Genoa loaded, but they will then stay in Gaza for the distribution of medical and food products in the area of Gaza. These have been modified trucks, which means that they can move in the rather complicated terrain of the Gaza Strip. This is a very important result at such a difficult time. Peace can be constructed step by step, but this G7 was characterized by a thorough discussion of global health as well, the issue of health and child mortality in Africa. This morning I invited the José Manuel Barroso special envoy. As you know, he was Prime Minister of Portugal and twice President of the European Commission, but now he's the head of Gavi, which raises finance and establishes vaccination plans, particularly in Africa. And this meeting was attended this morning, and we've just completed this meeting by some of the most important health and pharmaceutical companies of Italy, and they outlined what could be done. We heard a lot of ideas and opinions. We also had non-EU countries attending. There was South Africa, Norway, who took the floor to explain what can be done. We also present to show that vaccines have to be produced locally. Members of representatives of a multinational which operates in South Africa, and another one which is based in India. What can we say in terms of a final summary? We need to have a strategy for Africa, not to intervene to deal with the situation in a piecemeal way, but with a comprehensive strategy which aims at putting an end to the health emergency in Africa. And everybody agreed on this. The Italian entrepreneurs also agreed with this position. The Italian entrepreneurs who took the floor during the discussion obviously will continue to support Gavi. Italy, which is one of the contributors to Gavi, will continue to support its action to try to organize this vaccination campaign. We asked Barroso also to continue to work with the World Food Programme, also represented at this meeting this morning for the completion of the vaccination operation in Gaza. Another important event was the one we organized with missionaries. Yesterday afternoon, there were two events being held simultaneously, one on infrastructure and another devoted to the role of missionaries, both in the area of health and in training, as well as the growth of the African continent. We had a number of Italian missionaries, men and women, who spoke, not to speak of their religious work, but to speak of their work to promote the growth of the continent. We also addressed the issue of sports diplomacy, and which can be a tool to promote the growth of the African continent. You will have seen there was the Olympic medalist from Botswana who trains in Botswana, another Italo-Tanzanian champion. And that meeting triggered the idea with Minister Abodi to try to find scholarships for motor science departments for young Africans who can then become trainers of athletes in African countries. There were many bilateral meetings, of course. We supported the World Food Programme. We had Ms. Bacane, who leads it, and we had other organizations which provide assistance, including the Director General of FAO. And it was an important 3 days which put a spotlight on this city, which again I'd like to thank for its contribution. And the journalists were also well represented, and I think also in terms of food, you will also have appreciated the quality of the food which was served, and I think that you've been treated with special attention. If there are any questions, I'll be willing to take them. Answer, Stefano Cirillo.
Good afternoon, Minister. You spoke of a very important 3 days in terms of a step forward to initiate a dialogue for peace, but news coming from Gaza is worrisome. This new offensive on the Gaza Strip over the last 20 days caused more than 700 dead. What can you comment on that? And then I'd like to ask you a question on this morning's session. We spoke of vaccinations. Are there once again steps forward in terms of a G7 undertaking initiatives or concrete initiatives that were mentioned to increase local production in Africa? Thank you. I never said that we would reach peace. I said it was an important step forward to have here Israelis, Lebanese and Palestinians to speak of the humanitarian emergency. Because in Paris, or for the conference, during conference on the civil population, we have Israeli representatives. We overcame the veto and counter veto problem, whether one or the other would come. They all came, and we managed to convene all the interlocutors and the actors in the Mediterranean area. We have much to do in that area, both the Prime Minister in her mission in Jordan and Lebanon, as I witnessed myself when I was in Jerusalem and Ramallah, that steps are being taken. We're working in this direction. Of course, we have to take one step at a time. We are concerned for the civilian population, and this G7 was aimed at supporting the civilian population. The issue of vaccinations, well, we will do everything we can to enhance the initiatives in Africa through different means. We will try and get Africans to enjoy vaccinations, and the same is true for Gaza, thanks also with the cooperation of the Israeli government, possibly because we represent Italy, we may actually achieve some result. I repeat, problems cannot be solved in 3 days. I wish we had that magic wand, but this is a political outcome which shows the important role of Italy in that area, and it shows that this G7 presidency, in all its different facets, multifaceted as it was, did not play a routine role, but rather a leading role, which allowed the G7 countries to take the forefront. We showed also that the G7 can be opened up. It is not a locked-up organization. It is an organization that can move towards greater dialogue with other countries as well. And over the last few days, we invited, leave aside the Middle East, but I mean representatives of other African countries, South Africa, or countries that do not belong to the EU. We had Kenya, we had United Arab Emirates, African countries and countries from elsewhere in the world which looked to us with interest. They responded to our invitation. Deputy Minister of Kenya said, we are available to cooperate with the G7. He responded positively by saying that South Africa is available for cooperation. We will move along this pathway, and we will do so in Fiji during the Foreign Affairs G7, which will take place roughly in a month's time. So we're moving in this direction for every field under our jurisdiction or competence responsibility, so that G7 can be opened to hearing and cooperating with as many countries in the world as possible. Rai News.
Good afternoon, Minister. There's a session where you discussed Africa a lot, but in particular a session on investments. Italy has the Mattei Plan and Europe with the Global Gateway, and I'd like to know whether other commitments were taken within the G7 in order to invest in Africa. I take it that digitization and energy are the most delicate areas. Everybody wants to invest. Italy will invest. We're already investing. We've also spoken about what can be done to help Gavi on health aspects. We want to invest also because this is a request we've heard in these days of discussion in aid for training, and through our know-how. I mentioned this with regard to the sports sector, but also for the industrial sector. We want to increase the number of young people we train in Italy who we can transfer our know-how to. It's not so much a problem of, not so much a matter of giving money. And what we want to do is to allow Africans to grow on their own. So we need to work in training, innovation and research, and to set up joint ventures, and also working on raw materials becomes important. So we'll continue to fund initiatives through the Mattei Plan to fund actions which are always geared to promoting growth. Foreign Ministry obviously working to increase scholarships to train young African university students.
GG2. Good afternoon. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. One has to do with vaccinations. You repeated several times that the future of Europe goes through Africa, and Mr. Barroso repeated the same thing. But I have a curiosity concerning food security. You said that the supply side has the expertise that could play a central role in terms of ensuring food security. Can you explain? Yes, yesterday we addressed the topic of food security, thanks to many representatives also from the United Nations, starting from the World Food Programme. Food security is pivotal, topical concerning what is happening in Ukraine. The first to pay a price because of the lack of wheat are African countries, the poorer countries. Once again, there is a problem of organization. We should help these countries to produce wheat independently. So from this perspective, Italy has done much. We are already cooperating with many countries, thanks to the Mattei Plan, to enhance cooperation on an agricultural level. 200 hectares of land have been exploited in Egypt so that can be cultivated, they can be harvested thanks to the machinery provided by our country from the point of view of mechanical tools to till particularly difficult soils. We are making our tools available and through our technology. Also, we are trying to use more resistant plants and seeds that can be productively grown in Africa. We have already been experimenting with these plants and seeds so that on the African continent they can be used given the particular nature of the terrain and soil. Once again, scientific research is crucial. The Naples University has been working on this, but we will continue doing so in cooperation with African University.
Sky. Good afternoon, Minister. I'd like to refer to the subject you began your statement with, the fact that you've talked with representatives of Israel, Lebanon, and Palestine. Everybody spoke, not just me, because it's more important. It's not. But with reference to these meetings, considering that currently the conference on Lebanon is being held in Paris, I'd like to ask whether you've had any signal that there was any willingness, and whether in Paris there's been support for a decision on UNIFIL with more troops and other rules of engagement, so proposal to take the United Nations. This is still premature. We're still in the phase of making proposals. The Italian proposal is to have a UNIFIL contingent with new rules of engagement, and I would like to refer to 1701 from the borders with Israel to the river. North of the river, a consistent presence of, sizable presence of the Lebanese regular army, and only north of there a presence of Hezbollah, so as to keep any initiatives from the Shia Hezbollah militia far from the borders of Israel. This is our proposal. I think it's a reasonable proposal. The Americans' proposal is also similar, but I think this is an idea which the Israelis also liked. When I visited Jerusalem the other day, and I think this is also a proposal which the Israelis don't look down on, and I think the Lebanese would also be favourable. Maybe not. Maybe Hezbollah wouldn't like it, but we've got to work for peace, not to please specific parties involved. Israel would be happy if there were this double screen, and we want to strengthen the Lebanese state. This is a priority, and I think we should have the election of a new president of the Lebanese Republic who could be a real interlocutor. We're still in a transitional phase with regard to the leadership. We need a new leadership which can have a dialogue with Israel and conclude a negotiation for a ceasefire and then peace. At the same time, we need to strengthen the Lebanese armed forces, which don't have the strength to have control over the whole of the national territories. You know, the Italian army trains some of the Lebanese armed forces with bilateral missions to Beirut. Currently, this training exercise has been suspended because of the war, but this is the vision we have, and this is the path we need to follow if we want to attain peace. On the other hand, as far as Gaza is concerned, I believe that a ceasefire can only be achieved if the Israeli hostages in the hands of the terrorists since 7th of October last year are released, if the heads of the military organization of Hamas leave with Israeli permits. I think that would be a condition to reach a ceasefire. I don't see any alternatives to that decision on the part of the Israeli side. The guarantee they can give to the Hamas representatives would allowing them to leave if the hostages are released.
Vincenzo Giannina from Dire. Good afternoon, Minister. Thank you. During the humanitarian conference which opened the G7 development, much was said about multilateralism with particular reference to Lebanon and not just the Middle East. Today is the day in which the Secretary General of the United Nations is in Kazan in Russia on the occasion of the annual summit of the countries that are part of the conference. And when we spoke to Russian representatives, we heard that efforts towards dialogue as the participation of Guterres in Kazan must be seen favorably. Do you agree with that interpretation? Well, the United Nations should have taken steps from the very beginning to try and stop the war, suspend the war. I said that the UN would have had to send special envoys, which Mr. Putin would accept as interlocutors to stop the attack, as happened a few years ago when we had the attack to Georgia, which was stopped by Mr. Berlusconi and Mr. Sarkozy. It's good that the UN is trying to find some form of mediation. I'm favorable for a peace conference. I've been working on it, and I have tried to have a few steps forward taken when I visited in August Switzerland, and I met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We actually issued a joint declaration on this very topic. I wish we could reach a peace conference with the presence of China and Russia soon. I'm saying China because China is the only great power that may convince Russia to step back, and the only power that can avoid an escalation. If it's true that there are North Korean armed forces ready to get into Ukraine, we have to really remedy the situation very soon, because this would, of course, widen the conflict, and that must be avoided. Because one thing is the clash between Russia and Ukraine, and we always said that we should not use our weapons against Russia because we're not at war with Russia, but we must avoid the conflict to be widened to other actors.
Ti vous say, Stefano Buddha. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister. I'd like to go back to the crisis in the Middle East. This afternoon, in a few hours' time, there'll also be a demonstration against the G7 in Pescara. The main objection, which these movements, not just these movements, but broader sectors of the political sphere move against the G7, is linked to what is considered to be the misalignment between calls for peace and for humanitarian aid in the G7, and the fact that some of the member states of the G7 sell and therefore supply arms to Israel, and that these weapons of course the humanitarian crisis which we're seeing. I'd like to ask for your opinion on this. Well, I think the interpretation is somewhat peculiar. I think that what's happening isn't something which was provoked by Israeli weapons. It was provoked by the Hamas attack. I don't know who gave them weapons. It wasn't Israel or G7 countries which provided them with arms. Remember, on October the 7th last year, there was a massacre of civilian people who were taken house by house. This was done in order to provoke a reaction, and so it's not the arms which some countries have sold to Israel. And then arms can be used or not used, but Italy, since the 7th of October, has not sold any weapons to Israel or military material to Israel, because that's what the law dictates. I think those criticizing the G7 are doing that without having understood much of what's been going on here. We spoke of peace to help the civilian population. We didn't speak of weapons. We only spoke with the UN agencies. We spoke only about humanitarian aid. And I would challenge anybody else to do what we've done. Nobody has been able to bring Israelis, Palestinians, and Lebanese into the same place. And obviously people can say what they want. You can demonstrate. You can even say Jesus Christ died because he was exposed to cold weather. But I think what's been said about the G7 is wrong and doesn't help in any way. I think what's happened is really clear, because Israelis, Palestinians, and Lebanese came here. They didn't go to France. And that's a big difference, and there's something which you need to explain. You're a journalist, you can explain that better than me against those protesting. Are they protesting against peace? They're protesting against humanitarian aid. They're protesting against food for Gaza, which is the only humanitarian project which manages to get into Gaza because of the support it receives from Palestinian authorities and Israel. These are concrete facts. Tomorrow you're all invited. You can come to the port of Genoa, where the first truck will be handed over to the WFP. We had the Director General of the WFP, Ms. McCain, so the agency which will be distributing the aid, there was the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. If this occurs, if the Italian aid can go through and they're not handed over to Hamas, which then charge the Palestinian people to receive them, this is due to Italy's political action, which obtained a guarantee from Israel and the Palestinian National Authority, which is not Hamas, of course, to have the trucks enter the area. But we've already delivered foodstuffs to the amount of 47 million tons, which have been given by Condiretti and Confagricoltura. I'll be sending further health medical products, the field hospitals, and another concrete fact is that we received There's another important health group which is ready to deliver ambulances to Gaza through the Food for Gaza project, which is the project of the Italian government. Everybody's recognized the importance of this project. The ambassador of Israel at FAO, which is one of the guarantors of the operation, says food for Gaza is the best way to help the Palestinian population. It's the best model for providing aid to the Palestinian population, and the heads of the Palestinian National Authority confirmed this. Foreign Minister was here and said that, and the Prime Minister Mustafa also told me that. I don't know, perhaps they want to demonstrate in favor of war. We're working for peace to help the civilian population.
Messaggero, Stefano D'Ascoli. Hello, thank you. Quite beyond the specific topics, what will be left in Pescara and Abruzzo about this event? What is the response that the city gave? I believe you have a fondness for this city because of your past. And what feedbacks did you receive? Well, everybody was enthusiastic about the welcome they received. I was speaking with Mr. Barroso, who was looking at the pine grove in the name of D'Annunzio. They were very favorably impressed by the streets of Pescara, by the cuisine, of course, because we offered our guests products cooked and prepared by Abruzzo companies. So we gave we made a show of our typical local products. We also approved a document which summarizes what we have been discussing concerning humanitarian aid, which describes the Pescara spirit, and this will be on the record in Paris. They are following what is the Pescara spirit, as we've called it, because we have indicated a pathway, a direction, and in France they are following these choices of ours. The French Minister for Development commended the work carried out by Italy, and everybody seemed happy. They were very impressed by the theatre, the climate, the welcome, the kindness, and the enthusiasm they were greeted with, the applause that was devoted to them by the Abruzzo people who wanted to greet them and welcome them. So I believe that after a long time, Pescara was a protagonist. I'd like to thank the mayor. All the news, both in Italian and abroad, are speaking of what is happening here. And the limelight was shone on middle-sized Italian city. We only speak of Rome, Milan, and Naples, but for 3 days the light was shining on Pescara. This was a great event which allowed the city to show its organizational abilities, its beauties, its seaside. And I believe this stays here in Pescara, showing that it is able to organize an important international event. And this meant that Pescara has become a significant and important city. We hosted several events at the same time, which means that the organization is excellent, but also great infrastructures. Yesterday, over the last few days, we were at the theatre, at the mayor's building, at the Aurum. We crossed the city far and wide. There is a beautiful exhibition devoted to young people on sustainable development, and another exhibition organized by my minister. I'd like to thank General Director Gatti, who has sponsored this exhibition. And we have given all this to Pescara, which means that we brought many leading figures to the city, and this also means that we enhanced the beauties of the city. Everything went perfectly well. Not even a great country in the north would have organized these events with such accuracy. Everything was perfect, and including the members of my staff and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, and we were talking about this when we were coming here, said that Pescara made everything available. Mr. Barroso thanked me 100 times the way in which the day was organized. The president of B7, Mrs. Marcegaglia, said, congratulations for the mayor of the city. She told me over dinner. We actually dined in a beautiful private museum, and it is not every day that we can enhance the value of something like a private museum holding several works of art from the 19th century. Thanks to our manifold artworks in Italy, that the large cities overshadows the rest of the country. Rome for the center of the country, Milan the north, and Naples the south. But there are beautiful middle-sized cities which are never in the spotlight, and we have to make sure that these cities are brought to the fore, so everybody was impressed by the city of Ferrara.
Final question, TGR Abruzzo. And then we haven't finished yet because we've gathered all the mayors, and we have a project for the PNR. At just over 1 year from the 7th of October attacks, considering what's happened throughout the year, do you consider that the response of Israel was proportional, or whether there was any excess in it, considering the deaths of the civilian population in Gaza? Israel's reaction went beyond what it should have been. We've already said that. We've already said that. We always said that what was happening was unacceptable. Also, with regard to our UNIFIL troops, we always said that it's time to reach a ceasefire in Lebanon and also in Gaza. But we cannot conceal the fact that even though there are things we don't agree with, we've always said that. We've told Israeli friends because Israel is a friendly country, and we have the right and the duty to speak to them when we think that they're making mistakes. But we can't deny their right to self-defense, because it was started with Hamas, which committed that massacre with two goals. First of all, to prevent the agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia. You know, the Saudis are Sunni, and Hamas, even though it's Sunni, even though it's Shia, works with it's supported, even though it's Sunni, it works with the Shia, with Iran, supported by Iran. And the second thing was to provoke a reaction from Israel in order to isolate it in the world. They continue to fight. They continue to attack in the north of Israel, displaced people in Israel. Hezbollah has launched an attack against Netanyahu. So it's not that Israel isn't attacking other parties in the conflict, and our opinion, otherwise there wouldn't have been this conference on Lebanon and Gaza, is concern for the civilian population. Otherwise we wouldn't have organized this meeting. We said there were things we didn't agree with, but we cannot deny Israel's right to defend itself, because the presence of Israel is fundamental for the stability in that area. Trying to exclude Israel from the Middle East is unacceptable. I repeat our position: two peoples, two states. The Palestinian people has the right to have its own state, and today it's fiction, doesn't exist. First of all, the West Bank and Gaza have to be made viable. Then we have to recognize Palestine. At the same time, Palestine has to recognize Israel. Has to go both ways. Otherwise, it's just propaganda. There are countries like Spain have recognized the Palestinian state, and there haven't been any concrete facts as a result. We want to achieve concrete facts. We don't want to indulge in propaganda. We want to work for peace, not support one side or the other. And I think what we've done here, I think that's what we've done, and I'm saying with great satisfaction here in Pescara. No further questions. Thank you all, and I wish you very good work. And the Minister says, I would like to advise you to eat the ice cream outside.